If you've been around for a while, then you know how much I care about financial freedom for all. One thing that often gets in the way of that is debt. That's why I'm happy to announce that I've partnered with an amazing organization called Juno. Juno helps you get lower interest rates by using the power of group negotiation. It is a completely free resource that you can use to secure lower interest rates on new and existing student loans. Head to the link in the episode show notes to find out more. This is the Dreamers Podcast, episode 54, with certified financial planner Jacqueline Schadeck. Today is January 25th, 2022.
One very important piece to building wealth is compound interest. And what does compound interest need? It needs time. So the more time you have for that interest to compound, the better you are. So the earlier you start, the better of a position that you'll be in. I would encourage everybody to start now. So a lot of people ask, what can I do for my finances in 2022? Should I start investing now or should I start investing next year? And the answer is always right now. Right now is the best time because you need as much time as possible.
Hello, world. Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I am Stephanie Anne-Lyse, also known as Anne-Lyse Wealth. I am a financial coach and an author. I self-published my first book, Dream of Legacy, a guide to help dreamers reach financial independence and build generational wealth. In this podcast, I'll have conversations with experts and thought leaders who dare to follow their dreams. You'll hear about their journey and their money stories. I hope it inspires you, dreamers out there, to live life on your own terms.
Come on, dreamers, let's change the world!
This podcast is brought to you by Dream of Legacy. Check out dreamoflegacy.com for resources to assist you on your journey to financial independence. Before we get into today's episode, please take a couple minutes to go into Apple Podcasts, if you're listening from an Apple device, to rate and review the podcast. If you appreciate the free resources that are provided in this podcast, then the best way to let me know is to do just that. Reviews help the podcast be more visible and it helps other dreamers discover the podcast. So thank you. I appreciate you. And now let's get back to today's episode. Hello. Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I'm your host, Anne-Lyse Wealth. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode where I am chatting with certified financial planner, Jacqueline Schadeck. You definitely want to stick around to hear about the very difficult financial time that Jacqueline and her family went through when she was a teenager. She came from humble beginnings, was raised by a single mom, and when she was a teenager, her family inherited $1.4 million. But within 4 years, unfortunately, after trusting the wrong financial advisor, they lost it all. Today, Jacqueline shares her family story, and hopefully this can be a reminder for us all that it's not just about building the wealth, but it's also about taking the time to educate the next generation so that they are equipped to handle the wealth. These hardships has led Jacqueline to what she does today, which is help first generation wealth builders to develop a comprehensive financial plan so they can make the best decision for themselves and their families. She's been featured in CNBC, Market Watch, the Atlanta Business Chronicle, and other publications. Here is Jacqueline Schadeck. Jacqueline Schadeck, welcome to the Dreamers Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Anne-Lyse. I'm so excited to be here.
Can you tell our listeners a little bit about you and what you do?
Absolutely. So as Anne-Lyse was sharing, my name is Jacqueline Schadeck. I am a certified financial planner and I currently reside in Atlanta, Georgia. So my goal and my mission is just to empower others with the financial confidence to lead their lives. And so I'm on a mission to do that. And I'm really excited to share my story here. I'm hoping to drop some gems for everybody listening so that they can just take control of their financial lives and keep pursuing their journey of whatever it is they're trying to achieve in life.
So do you mind telling us how you got into the space that you work in now?
Okay, so good question. It's interesting because the same way that I got into financial planning is the same way that I ended up migrating to Atlanta, Georgia. And that's because my mother inherited $1.4 million and then she lost all of that money within about 4 years. And so long story short, I grew up on a 1,000-acre ranch in Northern California. And when the property was sold out from underneath us, without my mother's consent, my grandfather simultaneously passed. And so she inherited $1.4 million. Within about 4 years, $1.5 million was gone. And I had a lot of questions. I said, hey, what happened? That's not normal. That's not supposed to go like that. And so I hopped on Google and I was like, who is somebody that knows about what the heck a stock is? What's the economy? I didn't know any of these things. I had questions about 529s and retirement planning and health insurance because we never had health insurance. And so I came across the certified financial planner designation and I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And so fast forward to here we are about 10 years later, and I am a financial planner sitting in front of you, hoping to share some financial gems with everybody.
It's unfortunate, the story that led you to you wanting to become a financial planner, but it's amazing to see what came out of it. I remember reading an article about you in Market Watch where you talked about your family's inheritance story. On this podcast, I always talk about the importance of taking the time to educate our kids about money so that if you decide to leave an inheritance, they can be prepared to receive it and actually make it grow. In your situation, in your family situation, do you mind sharing a little more about what happened? Because you said your family lost $1.4 million in 4 years. And I'm sure most of the listeners are wondering, how does that happen? Can you give us a little more background?
Yeah, that's a really good question because my mom inherited 1.4, but suddenly lost 1.5. So it was like, how does that happen? So when my mother received her inheritance, and just so you know, it wasn't all at one time, but as it came in, the first chunk was, a little under $1 million. And so she wanted to go talk to the financial advisor. So she happened to know this guy from high school who would become a air quotes financial advisor. And so she goes to talk to him, was like, hey, I'm getting all of this basically inheritance money. Like, what do I do with it? I have no idea. And so what happens is this financial advisor takes one piece of her financial plan and executes on it. So the one piece of her financial plan was that at the time she had 3 kids and 1 on the way. And she was like, you know what? I want to put aside money for my children to go to college. And so he set up some 529 funds. For those of you who don't know what a 529 fund is, it's a special investment account, which is for your children to go to college. So you get special tax breaks by putting money into there, assuming that money comes out and it's for tuition, room and board, etc., right? College expenses. This advisor put her money into these 529 funds. And what he failed to plan for was the fact that, my mom was in her mid-30s when she received this inheritance, and she thought that she was going to be able to not work for the rest of her life. And that's not the case. It's going to be really difficult for anybody to retire with about $1 million at 35 years old, especially when you have 3 kids and 1 on the way, right? So the numbers just don't work. And this financial advisor didn't share that information with her. What he did was he put all that money into 529 funds. So when 2008 happened and my mom just started to realize, because we lived on her income, she was a single mom and she wasn't making a whole lot. She didn't finish college. And so income was limited. So once she realized like, okay, we've got 2008 happening, I'm not really able to go earn income because I don't have any real training. I make minimum wage. She ended up losing everything. So what happened was the 529 funds, when you pull money out of there, you pay penalties if you don't use it for college. So my mom needed to access her money, which all of it was wrapped up into these 529 funds. She needed to access that money. And so she was penalized when she pulled the money out. And then she was penalized because of the funds that were inside of the 529 funds. So she was just paying penalties on top of penalties. So she inherited 1.4, but she ended up owing 1.5 because one, there were some inheritance taxes that she was not advised about. And then she had all these taxes that she owed from pulling this money out of these 529 funds. So it's really important that you have a comprehensive financial planner in your life who can help you address some of these missing pieces. Even if you don't receive an inheritance or a windfall of money, it's just really important that you're planning for all of these different facets of your financial life.
It's just terrible what he did, because I'm just trying to understand why he would take the entire inheritance inheritance and put it in 529 and not even think about retirement planning for your mother and things like that.
Yeah, it was just a really big mess. We took some money and we bought a house with it because we'd never owned a house before. We grew up on the property that had been passed down for generations, but that wasn't my mom's own house. So she bought her first house. So that was about $250,000. And then she bought like a few cars, and we had taken a couple vacations, and we moved across the country, but pretty much everything else went into the 529 funds. And so it was like, all right, where are we going to get some money from when we don't have any money coming in?
What are some of the things that you think families can do to prevent that from happening?
That's a good question. And I think families first need to have the conversation about money. We'll talk about sex before we'll talk about money, right? So I think that we just need to normalize money conversations. And I think that we make that more difficult and more scary than it has to be. And so for those who are listening, I want to provide you with some quick and easy ways to have money conversations with your family. You know, when you're teaching your kids about money, it's funny because I actually had a client who called me out of desperation, and he said, look, I'm about to be a dad and I'm really nervous. He was like, I'm not an expert in money. Like, I'm not going to be able to teach my son anything about money. I said, yes, you are. You use money every day. You know what to do with that. And to be a parent, to be a qualified parent, doesn't mean you're an expert in everything in the world. I said, you're not over here crying to your dentist about how you're not going to be able to teach your child how to put his own crown on because you're not an expert in that. You're not an expert in everything, right? But you know what you do know. And I think that it is your responsibility to share that with your child. So I want you to normalize money conversations. And by doing that, you can share with your children, hey, we're in the grocery store. Okay, this costs this amount and this other option costs this amount. Why are we purchasing which one we're purchasing? And you're going to be having some of the financial conversations of we're purchasing this because it's cheaper. And you're going to be having some of the qualitative conversations of, well, this is a better quality product, so we're going to purchase this one over that one. Right? It's an easy way to start having money conversations with people, especially with your family and even with your children who are getting a little bit older and they're ready to go to college. Start having the conversations with them of like, I mismanaged my money when I went to college and I took out a bunch of student loans and I should have filed for grants. Just have these transparent conversations with them so that they can start to get an understanding for money. Because what we do is we just don't have the conversations at all. And we just hope that they're going to pick it up somewhere. And that's proven to not work.
I think, you know, a lot of times there's a lot of shame associated with when it comes to money. So sometimes people are ashamed to share the mistakes that they made, even with their kids. But in life in general, not just even when it comes to money, you learn more from the failures. So, you know, taking the time to actually share your failures with your kids, if you don't feel like that you know so much about money, is already making a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah, isn't that major to just hear from your parent? Like, I should have learned more about money before I had you. Like, that was just the mistake that I made. So don't make the same mistake I made, right? And all you could do is put the information out there and hope that they're receptive.
So if someone is in the position where they feel like they need to hire a financial advisor, do you have any tips to not end up with someone like the one that your family hired that ended up causing a lot of damage?
I think it's really good that you take a look around, right? And you hire the right one. It's like with a lot of things. We go around when we work on our house and we ask multiple contractors if they can do the job. You may contact 3 plumbers and see if they can do the job, if they're qualified. So you should do the same thing with your financial advisor. Make sure that they are qualified to deal with the situation that you're going through. So if you happen to come into a windfall, an inheritance, or you win the lottery, then it's important that you go to a financial advisor who has had some work with inheritances or windfalls. Same thing with planning for generational wealth. It's going to be really hard for you to go to somebody who only sells life insurance and really ask them about comprehensive generational wealth plans, because all that they can really sell you is life insurance. So it's just important that the person that you're working with is equipped to handle that. And so some questions to ask is, what are they certified in? Or what licenses do they have? What experience do they have? And also ask how they are compensated. There's nothing wrong with people who are compensated from their business, from a brokerage. It's just that they are positioned to sell certain products for that business. So just be aware of that and make sure that the products that you're getting are the right ones to fit into a certain piece of your financial plan. But there are multiple facets to it. And so you really need somebody who can help you comprehensively put all the puzzle pieces together.
You decided to become a financial advisor 10 years ago, and you're a CFP now. How has the decision to become a certified financial planner, or actually a financial advisor before that, impacted your finances?
The decision was a powerful one. So firstly, just the power in decision making and being decisive. When I made that decision, it showed me how much more powerful I really was. And so whoever's listening to this, I want to encourage you to be decisive in your life and go after whatever it is that you want full force. And, I made that decision to be a financial advisor at 20 years old. I was about 19, 20 years old when I made that decision. That has vastly impacted my finances, right? Because we know that one very important piece to building wealth is compound interest. And what does compound interest need? It needs time. So the more time you have for that interest to compound, the better you are. So the earlier you start, the better of a position that you'll be in. I would encourage everybody to start now. So a lot of people ask, what can I do for my finances in 2022? Should I start investing now, or should I start investing next year? And the answer is always right now. Right now is the best time because you need as much time as possible. All right. So the phrase is, and I'm sure you said it on here before, Anne-Lyse, is that time in the market is better than timing the market. So for those who don't understand, time in the market just means that it's better for you to start now. This is what the numbers have shown us. I'm not just spouting this out. The numbers have shown that time in the market, meaning starting now instead of starting next year, even doesn't matter where the market is. At the end of the day, you're going to end up in a better place by starting out earlier because time in the market is better than trying to time the market.
So for parents to be, or anyone that's looking to take control of their finances, what are some of the ways that they can start building wealth?
I'm kind of like a little bit of a history nerd when it comes to finance. So I did some studying and I noticed that online stock trading, you know what year that started? Take a guess, Anne-Lyse, take a guess. I'm putting you on the spot.
Uh-oh. So the ability to do it online.
Mm-hmm. Because, okay, while you're thinking about that, for y'all listening, before online stock trading, literally we used to trade stocks by paper. Like it had to be a paper that was signed and it was done on the exchange. I can't imagine. That sounds so inefficient.
Is it 1990?
Girl, you are really good. It was 95.
Oh, okay.
You're ahead of your time. It was 1995 that you could start trading stocks online. Why do I bring that up? Because it gave us accessibility. It started to break down barriers. All right. So especially when you think of people of color and redlining and all of the ways that access has been cut off for us, when we started being able to have access to this online, what it did was it gave everybody the ability to start opening up investment accounts and to start investing. And there shouldn't be a question on there about what your race is, and so it's like, it doesn't matter what race you are, but this opens up the opportunity for you to get started. That's 1995. Fast forward to about 2014, 2015, 2016-ish. That's when Robinhood made their debut and they announced that they were having free trades. So you could not only get online and open an account and start trading or investing, but now you could do it for free. Okay, so you can open up your account for free online. You can make free trades, so you can buy investments for free. There is nothing that is holding you back. So for those of you who are scared to get started, let this story be your fuel, because there is nothing holding you back other than a little bit more information and some execution. And we know YouTube University is an amazing tool. You can hop on there and you can get all of the answers of how to open an account that you need. It's super, super easy. I even put it on my social media and it's in my course that I sell, How to Transform Your Finances in 30 Days, right? To walk you through all the steps to be able to open up your investment accounts. In my course, I even talk about what kind of accounts that you need to open. If we're talking about what do you need to do now to build generational wealth, man, it's been a tough year, 2021, for your finances because we've been faced with really, really high inflation. And inflation is what eats away at the money that you have sitting in cash. So if your money is not invested, it's losing its value because the inflation is so high. So how do you combat that? You invest your money. It's just really, really important that you understand that the barriers are not that high to entry to be investing. And that's one of the biggest things that I need you to be doing right now is investing your money.
As a CFP, I think I saw that you specialize in helping first generation wealth builders.
Yep, you got it.
So what are some of the common mistakes that you see first generational wealth builders make?
One of the common mistakes that I see first is limiting beliefs, which has nothing to do with money, right? It has everything to do with the story that I just shared about when stock trading started and how you can trade for free, right? Because a lot of people think that they don't have access to investing or investing is not for them or they don't qualify for that. And I'm like, everybody qualifies.
Or it's too risky.
Yeah, or it's too risky. And it's like, 89% of the stock market is owned by the top 10%. So if you think that the top 10% of net worth holders in the world, or your Elon Musk, your Bezos, your Buffetts, that investing works for them, what do you think is going to work for you? It works. Trust me, it works. I've been in this almost 10 years. It works. Okay. You need to pay attention to that. You need to be mirroring what the wealthy are doing. A lot of people get stuck in this rut, basically, where they're like, my parents didn't do that. That's not comfortable. I didn't see that growing up. And it's like, whoa. Were you raised in a really wealthy family? No, you weren't raised in a really wealthy family, then it's going to be uncomfortable and you're going to have to make a shift and you're going to have to do things differently because we have to mirror what the wealthy are doing if we want to become wealthy. The reason why I'm on this podcast right now is because a couple of reasons. One, I don't want to make it a race story at all, but I'm biracial. Like I was raised by an entirely white family. I don't know my Black family at all. So I've had to fill in the gaps of what is my story as a Black woman in America. But the other reason why I'm on here is because the wealth gap is for every $1 that a white family has, a Black family only has 10 cents to match that dollar. Why is that? So we can dig into all the reasons of why it is, or we can try to figure out how we can switch the narrative and how we can close that wealth gap. And that's one of the reasons why I'm on here, because it's not to have money just to have money, but it's because if you have money, it comes with time freedom. If you didn't have to work every day, what time would you get up? What would you be doing? So imagine having your money. If you have your money, you have your time, and you have your time, you have the ability to do what you want to do with your time. So it's just so important that we're focused on building wealth. For me, it's about closing the wealth gap.
I love that because, a lot of times you hear all this talk about money. That's so materialistic, but that's not what it's about. It's really about what wealth brings to your life. We're out here for a certain amount of time, and it gives us the option to be the best version of ourselves, to do everything that we want to do. When you have to worry about how you're going to eat the next day, how you're going to buy clothes for your kids and all those things, then you're not free. You're not free to think. You're not free to move. You're not free to be. And so it's really about so much more than money at the end of the day.
Oh my goodness. I love that, because you're a human being, not a human doing, not a human getting up at 6 a.m. every day to get the kids ready to go to work. No, you're a human being. I love that.
For anyone listening, a lot of our listeners are at different stages of the wealth building process. Some are getting out of it and they are hearing you and they want to make a change. They want to start building that generational wealth. What 3 steps can they take today to get started?
3 steps that you can take today to start building generational wealth. Well, firstly, I want you to get a handle on your money. What do I mean by that? I want you to, I know this word's about to be scary and it's going to turn a lot of people off, but I really need you to understand your budget. And it's not supposed to be a scary word. All it is a fancy term for monitor the money that you have coming in and the money that you have going out. And in this day and age, it's super, super easy to do that. So we have tons of online free tools that you can use to monitor your money. One that is really trusted is Mint. So if you guys are familiar with TurboTax, they are part of Intuit, and they also run Mint. So Mint is a free platform where you can aggregate, put all of your accounts together in one place, and you can manage your cash flow. So you can just manage your budget. It's automated. It makes it super, super simple. So I need you to do that. And the reason why I need you to do that is because of two reasons. All right. There's only two reasons to have a budget. And the first one is financial discipline. So for somebody who is just starting out and you're trying to figure out what to do, you have to build a discipline. It's just like with most things in life. If you want to work out and you want to get in better shape and you want to tone up, you have to have a discipline, right? You can't just eat everything that you want and not work out when you feel like it. You have to build a discipline. Same thing works with your finances. You need a financial discipline where you are reviewing your budget every month, every week, as much as you need it for motivation, but at least monthly. And so the first reason to have a budget is financial discipline. The second reason to have a budget, and these are really the only two reasons why I want you to have a budget, is so that you can know how much money you need to invest every month. If you create a budget, then you'll know, oh, okay, so I can spend this here, spend that there, and I can invest this every month. So I want you to put that in your budget. So those are two reasons why you need a budget. And that's one of the biggest things that you should do right now for your money if you're really just getting started. I want you to create your budget. That's so important. The next thing that I want you to do is I want you to look at your net worth. So your net worth is just a statement that shows us what you own versus what you owe. So on one side of your net worth statement, you should have your assets, which would be all the things that you own. And then you should have your liabilities, which would be all the things that you owe. So like your student loan debt, your credit card debt, all of those kinds of things. And then you just net them together and that gives you your net worth. I want you to review your net worth because this is going to be your way of measuring your financial success. Okay. I know that some people have different measurements, but this is the one that I want you to use. Okay. Because I want you to review your net worth every year with hopes that it is growing every year. I want your investment account column to be growing every year. So I share some tools on my site that you can use for a net worth statement as well. So I want you first to be managing your cash flow with your budget. I want you two to be looking at your net worth. And then three, I want you to actually be prioritizing investments. So as you're going through your budget, you're probably going to be looking at it like, oh my gosh, I spend way too much on X, Y, and Z, right? And you're like, well, in order for me to invest $1,000 a month, I'm going to have to cut out X, Y, and Z. Well, I want you to wrap your head around turning your sacrifices into priorities, because a lot of times we say like, oh man, now I got to sacrifice getting drunk every weekend because I'm spending too much for my investments. And I'm like, no. You're not sacrificing getting drunk. You're just prioritizing investing. And when we prioritize something, that doesn't have to be indefinitely. So you can make a promise to yourself. It's funny, Anne-Lyse, because the article that you read about me, the title that the editor chose was, I promised myself I would never be broke again. And so I made that promise to myself at 17 years old, and I have never been broke like I was again. And so I need you to make a promise to yourself, make a promise that says, hey, I'm going to prioritize investing for 6 months. And let's just see what happens. Let's start a net worth statement right now. Let's prioritize investing for 6 months and let's review that net worth statement again and see what happens. See how you feel. If you don't care about investing at all, you don't care about your future self, you don't care about buying your time back, then don't prioritize it. Simple as that. But those are the three things that I want you to do. I want you to create a budget. I want you to review your net worth, and I want you to prioritize investing. That's the best thing that you can do for somebody who's just getting started.
I love that. So I'd like to end the interview with a round of rapid fire questions. Tell me about a book that changed your perspective on life.
That's a good question. So when I got interested in finance, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And for those who haven't read it, or even for those who have, that book is really important because I think it talks a lot about how to deal with people who are not financially focused when you are. I'm sorry, this is rapid fire. Am I it's supposed to be a short, quick answer?
Go ahead. It's good.
I think it helps you learn how to deal with people who are not financially minded the same way that you are. So for those who haven't read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Mr. Kiyosaki talks about how his biological father is not really financially focused and didn't really teach him how to become financially free. But then he refers to another friend's dad as his rich dad, who taught him the importance of entrepreneurship and investing and building wealth. And so I think that's really important because you need to remember to have grace with people in your life who are not on the same financial path as you. So for instance, I have family members who are not on the same financial independence path that I'm on. And that doesn't mean that they're any less of family or I accept them any less. I'm glad that I read that book because it teaches you that if you read in between the lines. So if you haven't read that book in a while, I encourage you to go back and read it because I just see a lot of financial advisors or other people who start their financial journey and they just want to cut off anybody in their life who isn't on the same path, which isn't what you should do. What you should do is just focus on what you're focused on, focus on what your goals are. And people who don't fit the mold, they will naturally fall off. You don't have to be aggressive and go cutting people out of your life. You didn't even give them a chance. So just focus on your goals and the rest will fall into place.
And a lot of times too, and this is supposed to be rapid fire, but a lot of times too, your family members and people around you might not get what you're doing. And then once they start, when they see the result, then they'll come around and ask you, hey, how can I do this too?
Exactly. Bring them all with you.
Tell me about one thing about money you wish you could tell your younger self.
One thing about money, it's literally what I tell myself now, which is that money will not bring you happiness. I myself battled with depression and a lot of anxiety and certain setbacks. And I wish that I could tell myself that you need to focus on money so that you can get your peace of mind that you're looking for, but it's not going to bring you everything that you need. You're still going to have to do a lot of work on yourself and a lot of healing. And I think that if I had followed that journey a little bit earlier, that I would just be further along in my self-healing journey and my self-love journey. And I think that that's really major. And I would have told myself to invest earlier if I could.
What's the best investment in yourself you've made so far?
Best investment in myself. Gosh, there's really so many, but I think that focusing on my education was huge, both formal and informal, just pouring into myself via going through with the CFP, watching the TED Talks that I've watched, paying for the mentorships, paying for the courses. I think that just pouring into myself has been so major.
Filling the blank in 3 words or less. Money to me is
financial freedom.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I want people to remember me for having positively impacted them, both from a financial sense and just from a personal healing self-love sense.
Well, Jacqueline, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story and your knowledge with the listeners. Please tell the dreamers where to find you.
Hey, dreamers, you guys can find me at Jacqueline Plans on all social media platforms. I would love to see you guys' faces, connect with me, let me know that you heard me on the podcast. If you're interested in grabbing the course, just send me a quick message. I'll make sure that we get you a discount code. And Anne-Lyse, I was so happy to be on this podcast. And I hope that this really has helped somebody in their financial journey.
Thank you. That was Jacqueline Schadeck, everyone. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Coming up next week, we have Rob and Rishawn Lee, and we're talking about becoming debt-free by paying off student loans, mortgage, and how they quit their job after that to travel the world for an entire year and became entrepreneurs upon their return. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Dreamers Podcast. You can find the episode show notes and all of the links mentioned at dreamoflegacy.com. If you liked today's episode, here's what you can do to support me and help more dreamers discover the podcast. Follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate and review the podcast to help the podcast gain more visibility. Share the podcast with your family, friends, and coworkers. And if you really enjoyed today's episode, please take a second to tag me at thedreamers.podcast on Instagram and let me know what you liked about today's episode. All right, dreamers, that's it for today. I will see you back here next week for another episode of the Dreamers Podcast.
Okay, dreamers, time to build this legacy.
This podcast is for general information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax, legal, financial planning, insurance, accounting, investment, or any other kind of professional advice or services. Please consult with an appropriate tax, financial, or legal professional to receive appropriate advice based on your situation.
Sunday, Skincare Day, is one of the ways I keep my sanity in these crazy times. DREAMER'S is an all-natural, Black-owned skincare brand carefully handcrafted by parents who could not find the proper care solutions to address their family skin problems. All DREAMER'S products are made of organic and high-quality ingredients, meticulously chosen to give your skin the smooth results and the glow it deserves.